Let's get into it. Soul Not For Sale podcast. We got Joe Rogan completely he supports Trump, but he just won't say he supports Trump. In this clip, he's talking about how they said Trump was going to lead us into war and he never did. And then he's talking about Biden's pullout in Afghanistan and how Trump would have done it way better and how Trump is exposing what's going on in the government. He's exposing things on the left and the right. And he's just talking about what a great president he is alongside of Kid Rock. I guess Kid Rock brings that out in him. So after we play that clip, I'm going to be playing a whole bunch of other stuff for you, including another clip from Joe Rogan. Now, we're going to be touching on the pullout of Afghanistan because I wanted to go deeper into that and look a little deeper into that. So we're going to hear Trump talk about that, his interaction with the Taliban. Then we're going to be playing a little bit of his plan. He actually had a plan to pull out. And then we're going to be hearing his anti-war speech. Then we're going to move on to a Green Beret talking about what he experienced boots on the ground in the pullout of Afghanistan and how horrible it was. It's absolutely terrifying what he says. Then we're going to have that same Green Beret talk about the border, but then he's talking about it from the aspect of the cartels and what they're actually doing and how this is actually an invasion. Very interesting stuff. Then we're touching on Trump winning South Carolina and Michigan. And of course, the liberals are saying that when he gave a speech at this black convention of sorts, that he said something very racist. I'm going to play that for you, let you decide. And then we're going to tackle CNN saying that black Trump supporters don't really exist. And if they do, they're ignorant. And then I have a bunch of clips proving them wrong right after that. So let's get into it. Don't forget about IamCoachColin.com. We got Soul Not For Sale variations, all sorts, Public Enemy #1, anti-mainstream stuff, We the People stuff, presidential mugshots. Discount code is I am Coach Colin, all capital letters, all one word, one L in the name Colin. Let's get to Rogan.
Let's debate which is the right idea in terms of like what to do with the economy or what to do with the environment or what to do with all these things. That should be what we're all concerned about.
Absolutely.
Everything be so fucking, these people are evil and these people are the future and this is the death of democracy if you go that way. And it's shut the fuck up. You people are freaking everybody out.
Exactly.
You people are freaking everybody out. And I don't think you're right. And you weren't right when he was in office. What happened? Where was the end of the world? The guy was in office for 4 years. Where was the wars? Oh, we didn't start any new wars. You know,
exactly.
The whole thing is nuts, man. And during the Biden administration, the disastrous pullout of Afghanistan, you realize like all the shit that he wouldn't have done. He wouldn't have done it that way. He would have asked those guys, he would ask the generals like how to do this.
Absolutely.
And do it the right way.
Absolutely.
They should get out of there, but they're probably going to have to maintain some force there. Otherwise, the Taliban's going to take over like they did. Like,
it would take them a month.
Fucking duh. And then you left all the tanks because it's too expensive to get them out of there. I saw Trump talking about that, like how insane that was.
Right.
That he left behind all the military equipment.
It's billions of dollars. Why are we sending money to countries that hate us?
How could you ever imagine a scenario where it makes sense to leave a hostile military group like the Taliban tanks? What?
Insanity.
And it's almost like we're going to have to go back and you'd like them to be a little bit more well-armed this time. So then we could have a real war,
Jesus.
like a bigger war, like a war with two armies. So then with the war, if we lose some people, then you can really justify spending much more money to buy like better shit, to fuck those people up with their old shit, our old shit.
Well, unfortunately, some of that might come back to haunt us here, and I hate to put that out in the universe, but it's, with this border being open, we know there's bad actors here. We know it's not if.
You would have to do that if you could. If ISIS is real, we know it is. What if they're doing their job? They would sneak in.
They already have.
Well, why wouldn't you sneak in?
They're already here. Okay,
Kid Rock, let's put on the tinfoil hats. Why are they allowing the border to be open like this?
It's insanity. I don't know. To get votes for the Democratic Party? I have no idea. I can't answer that question. It seems insane to me. We want great migrants to come here. Yes, it's the foundation of our country. I know so many good ones that fucking work hard, that were working on my house to build it, to do different things here and there.
Sure.
Friends. You know what I mean? We need workers like this. We just want them to come through legally. I know I sound like a broken record.
It should be a better vetting process that allows people to come in legally, but also you have to vet people. You can't just let terrorists through if you really care about security. So this is my question, and this is where I get when I get really conspiratorial. When the weed kicks in, when you get real conspiratorial, I start thinking about all these things that are happening. The decline of California, the fucking tents in the street, the fact that they know they can clean it up, but they choose not to. They cleaned it up when Xi Jinping came to San Francisco. You saw that, right?
I saw that.
So who would be... why would anybody want it to continue in the same direction that's continuing? Because it seems to be deteriorating. It doesn't seem to be improving. Who, other than someone who would want America to fail?
Well, the other question is like, okay, Trump handled it to the best of his ability with the tools he had in his toolbox. Biden now has that same toolbox. And he keeps saying, well, Congress won't give me the money. They won't pass. And why the fuck is that going on, too? Then they put three things in one bill. They put,
put Ukraine in the border wall.
Border wall and Israel, aid to Israel. They put those three. Why the fuck are these not separate bills to vote on? Because they're all trying to throw their fucking bullshit in there. That's both sides do that.
Yeah, they both do.
They both should cut that crap out. It's like we're gonna vote on the fucking border wall. Have it be the fucking border wall, and that's it.
Yeah.
Don't fucking try to piggyback Ukraine and Israel into there. Those should be separate bills on their own.
Well, not only that, how much are they required to know about the bills they're signing? Because some of those bills are enormous.
Attorneys have fucked this country up beyond belief.
Some of those bills, unless you spent a long time going through them and
if you're
also
even educated enough to decipher the lingo, the wording, the definitions.
Yeah.
You don't think a lawyer can spin something around?
100%. That's why I was saying, I was going to say, and consult with people that are experts in whatever the fuck they're talking about.
They should be written 2-page bills, 2 to 5 to 10-page bills in layman's terms that anybody with a high school degree can fucking decipher. Yeah. Period. Why don't they make that a law so we can all read them and understand them?
The fact that they sandwich all kinds of shit inside bills is just nuts. That should be illegal.
Completely.
You're sneaking stuff in there that allows for mass surveillance.
And Trump pulled their pants down on that.
Yeah.
Trump did that. And make no mistake, there's plenty of fucking the Republican establishment that hate him too. He's fighting them as well. Because he's like, you guys are full of shit over here too. He's telling so many people up there in D.C., you're full of fucking shit. He goes, I'm going to run this like a fucking business, and I'm going to win. He likes to win. He loves to win so much that that I want him fighting for this country because he wants to fucking win. I want him on my team, period.
I like it. I like your passion for this, Kid Rock.
Kid Rock bringing out the best in Joe Rogan, I have to say. Now, a couple of things that they brought up, I just have to go through really quick. Kid Rock saying that they're already here in regards to bad actors. It's really hard to argue when you look at the numbers. I mean, they're saying that the numbers are anywhere from 10 million illegal entries to 15 million. What are the odds 100 of those people have nefarious intentions? I think that's pretty high. I mean, I don't know what to do when I bring somebody that information, but more than likely he is right. Now, maybe not in the worst case scenario, but there are some people there. You can find this. This is easy information to find. There have been so many people who have been on the terrorist watch list who have gotten stopped and processed, arrested, sent out of the country, but they did try to enter. So how often does that go on, right? Imagine a border with cartel and terrorists trying to get in simultaneously. Ugh, wow. Then when Joe just got really stumped there. He just went, he knows what he wants to say, but he knows that he can't just outright say it because there's millions of people and so many stories will get written about him. But when I have that same thought that he's having about the border, everything that's happening, and who would allow all this to happen? You can't be that the people in power are that incompetent. It's just, it can't, the odds that everyone is that incompetent. No. They can all see what's happening. And the way that I phrase it is, without saying too much and without pointing the finger at anybody in particular, I say the attack within. I don't know about you, but it seems like there's some kind of attack within. That's what I call it. And then the Joe Rogan asked this one question. I'm going to go to Trump right now. But Joe Rogan asked the question, how much do they have to know about these bills? Well, I actually saw a clip of Lindsey Graham getting grilled about the Restrict Act, and Lindsey Graham didn't know what was in it at all. And Lindsey Graham was the first person to support that bill. And by the way this interview went, him and Jesse Waters, it was like he didn't even know what was in it. It was like he didn't look at it at all. It was like a friend just said, hey, sign this. And he was like, no problem. So how much do they have to know? Absolutely nothing. They don't even have to look at the bill in order to sponsor it, which is pretty wild, in my opinion. Let's get into Trump. He has some words for Biden on his withdrawal from Afghanistan. Then we're going to get into Trump's plan. Then you're going to hear a depiction, another Joe Rogan clip of what actually went down when the pullout happened.
We were leaving Afghanistan with dignity and strength. Biden left in shame and defeat a defeat like this country has never suffered before. This month marks the 2-year anniversary of the most embarrassing event in the history of our country, Joe Biden's disastrous surrender in Afghanistan. This was one of the horrible, horrible events in our country's past, leaving thousands and thousands of Americans behind. We don't even know the number. 13 dead warriors, hundreds of civilians killed and horribly wounded, including soldiers beyond the 13 soldiers that were so badly wounded. And $85 billion worth of the finest military equipment anywhere in the world abandoned, handed over, call it what you want, to the Taliban. It was a surrender. Never before has there been such an egregious display of incompetence and weakness on the world stage. You don't bring the soldiers out first, you bring the soldiers out last, Joe. Ever since that horrendous event, the United States and the world have been paying a very steep price. Russia took one look at Joe Biden's impotent and pathetic performance and decided to invade Ukraine. He would have never done it while I was president. Wouldn't have happened. China is now threatening Taiwan. Iran is on the cusp of a nuclear bomb, and American allies around the globe are doubting American strength and cozying up to the Chinese Communist Party. It's impossible to overstate the scale of the military, diplomatic, and geopolitical disaster created by Joe Biden's Afghanistan catastrophe. History will be very harsh on Crooked Joe for a lot of reasons, but this is one of them. What is needed now is a decisive and rapid return to unquestioned, undoubted, and unrivaled American power.
100%. 100%. The key thing that he just said, which I think he's going to say in his plan that he has as well, soldiers outlast. That's very true. I didn't think of that, right? I'm victim of it as well. You know, I hear Joe Biden did something terrible, and I go, yeah, of course he did. I don't need to look into it that much. Nah, I believe you. I don't doubt it. But when you actually look into this whole situation, it was really bad. And when the soldiers leave first, it looks like a surrender because they're the main force keeping everything in check, keeping, whatever perimeter you have, keeping the enemy at bay. So when they leave first, it does look like a surrender. If they give up ground, the soldiers, Taliban takes ground. So it seems like you're losing ground, you're surrendering, and then you're leaving the country and you're leaving all your stuff. You know, it really does seem like a surrender. Whereas if they leave last, well, then you're able to handle everything the way it needs to be handled. You know, leaving equipment behind, that doesn't happen. People who need to be processed, who were your allies while you were in Afghanistan, taking them, doing everything that you need to do. Setting up whatever base you can that's going to like maintain some kind of show of force or presence. All of that can happen if the soldiers leave last. And then it looks like a pullout. Then it looks like you're lessening your presence. But if you leave first, it definitely looks like a surrender, undoubtedly. Now we're going to play a clip here of Trump, and he is just saying really quickly what he said to the leader of the Taliban. And you know what? I don't doubt it for not even a second. I really do think he said this. Let's go.
Hard. Mike Pompeo, a brilliant guy, and many others worked on it endlessly. Meetings with the Taliban. Of course, you have to meet with the Taliban. They're the ones that you're negotiating with. I spoke on numerous occasions to the head of the Taliban, and we had a very strong conversation. I told him up front, I said, look, before we start, let me just tell you right now that if anything bad happens to Americans or anybody else, or if you ever come over to our land, we will hit you with a force that no country has ever been hit with before.
I really don't doubt it. I don't doubt that he said that at all to the head of the Taliban, for sure. And the reason that I'm putting myself over those images, just so you know, is because it could be considered graphic. There's a lot of stuff going on there. When they were doing the pullout, there was a lot of people clinging onto the plane, trying to stuff themselves inside. It's actually quite a sad scene, and I don't know that I can show it, or even if I really want to. It was just hundreds, if not thousands of people in tremendous despair and terror, and it's just Yeah, really, really sad case, that whole thing. Now, we're going to get Trump actually talking about his plan. Let's get that going right now. This is Trump's plan on the whole pullout situation. Let's hear it.
Frankly, Biden didn't have to even go by that agreement. He could have done. Look what he's done to the border. We had the greatest border, southern border, in the history of our country. We stopped drugs. We stopped human trafficking. We stopped people from coming in, prisoners from coming in. Now you have the worst people in the world. They're emptying their jails into our country. This is like the southern border, but it's handled even worse. Nobody handled the southern border worse than him. We had the most secure border we've ever had. Now we have by far the worst border we've ever had. Well, Afghanistan is the exact same thing. By the way, I'm America first, okay? The Americans come out first, but we're also going to help people that helped us. And we have to be very careful with the vetting because you have some rough people in there, but we're going to help those people. But can you imagine? Now, what we were going to do just very quickly is we were going to take the military out last, okay, last. The people were coming out, they were going to come out, but the agreement was violated, so I held things back because we weren't going to do anything, again, conditions-based.
Now, one thing I like that Trump just said is that they were going to help the people that helped us. And what he's referring to is there are many people who walk alongside the military. They will go into towns. They will translate. They will say, oh, you heard a person is here. You heard someone in the Taliban is in this place. Okay, can you clear everybody out? They do so much, and they get a target on not just their back, their entire family's back. And some of those guys, those translators, they get promised that they're going to get brought to America and get processed and everything, and they don't. And it's terrible what happens to them. It's terrible what happens to their family. So the fact that Trump even brought up helping those people is amazing. And the military has to leave last, 100%. It's very, very interesting. And now we're going to move on to the anti-war speech that Trump had. I got two clips in regards to this. Let's get into the first one.
I was the only president in decades who didn't start a war. Instead, I got us out of wars and endless wars. And one of the wars I got us out of was a war against ISIS. We defeated ISIS. It was supposed to take 4 years, and I got it done in 4 weeks. Would you say that's good? Because we have the greatest military on earth. We have the greatest leaders, but not the guys on television, not the ones on television. I'm the only candidate who can make this promise to you. I will prevent World War III. I will prevent World War III.
You know what? It's really sad because you hear a president saying this type of thing and you're like, yeah, of course you're going to prevent war. But so many people in politics don't want to take that stance because of who is backing them, who their contributors are, you know. And if you look it up, go and look it up. And this is on Republican and Democrat side. Usually within the top 3, sometimes top 5, you'll see two defense contractors that are the top contributors to a lot of these senators, congressmen, presidential candidates, and you don't see that with Trump. And you can look into it. It's there to be seen. I think the site is called OpenSecret.com. I'm pretty sure. Go check out OpenSecret.com. You'll be able to see all sorts of stuff. And let's move on to the other clip of Trump just talking about being anti-war. Because again, the reason I'm playing this, they said time and time again that Trump is going to be the one to spark World War III. He is going to be the one to bring about World War III. And he's been time and time again the guy who's like, no war, don't want war. When in regards to Ukraine, I want to see people stop dying. And he's also the only president to call out the military industrial complex. And people don't realize it, but every time he says no more wars, I'm going to prevent World War III, he is taking money out of someone's pocket. There is some people who stand to gain substantially from war.
World War III has never been closer than it is right now. We need to clean house of all of the warmongers and America last globalists and the deep state, the Pentagon, the State Department, and the national security industrial complex. One of the reasons I was the only president in generations who didn't start a war is that I was the only president who rejected the catastrophic advice of many of Washington's generals, bureaucrats, and the so-called diplomats who only know how to get us into conflict, but they don't know how to get us out. For decades, we've had the very same people, such as Victoria Nuland and many others just like her, obsessed with pushing Ukraine toward NATO, not to mention the State Department support for uprisings in Ukraine. These people have been seeking confrontation for a long time, much like the case in Iraq and other parts of the world, and now we're teetering on the brink of World War III. And a lot of people don't see it, but I see it, and I've been right about a lot of things. They all say Trump's been right about everything. None of this excuses in any way the outrageous and horrible invasion of Ukraine 1 year ago, which would have never happened if I was your president, not even a little chance. But it does mean that here in America, we need to get rid of the corrupt globalist establishment that has botched every major foreign policy decision for decades, and that includes President Biden, whose own people said he's never made a good decision when it comes to looking at other countries and looking at wars. We have to replace them with people who support American interests. Over our 4 years in the White House, we made incredible progress in putting the America Last contingent aside and bringing the world to peace. And now we're going to complete the mission. The State Department, Pentagon, and national security establishment will be a very different place by the end of my administration. In fact, just into my administration, it'll be a very different place, and it'll get things done, just like I did 4 years ago. We never had it so good. We'll also stop the lobbyists and the big defense contractors from going in and pushing our senior military and national security officials toward conflict, only to reward them when they retire with lucrative jobs, getting paid millions and millions of dollars. Take a look at the globalist warmonger donors backing our opponents. That's because they're candidates of war. I am the president who delivers peace, and it's peace through strength. There was a reason we had no conflict. There was a reason we didn't get into wars, because other countries respected us. I entirely built, all right from the beginning, rebuilt our military. It's a big reason for that. They didn't want to mess around with the United States, and now they're laughing at us.
Man, I don't think people realize how big that is for him to say that. That's a big thing. You don't just say that. You don't just say that when you're a politician, when you're in politics. You don't just say, "Oh, these people, they get." Man, I'm gonna play it again.
Them when they retire with lucrative by the end of my administration. In fact, just into my administration, it'll be a very different place, and it'll get things done, just like I did 4 years ago. We never had it so good. We'll also stop the lobbyists and the big defense contractors from going in and pushing our senior military and national security officials toward conflict, only to reward them when they retire with lucrative jobs, getting paid millions and millions of dollars.
Man, that's wild. To say that you're going to stop that. Again, you got to look into it. How much these lobbyists actually kind of control stuff. Not even kind of. I mean, it's inarguable nowadays when you really look at it. And, you know, a lot of people, like, for sure, because I've looked into Lindsey Graham extensively. You'll see that with him like crazy. Almost to the same extent, Nikki Haley. Who do you think's still paying? Who do you think's still paying for a failing campaign? Who's still putting money into that? People who will benefit 1,000-fold if she by some miracle gets elected. Could you imagine? Because exactly what Trump said, she's a candidate of war. Now we're going to play a quick clip from the Green Beret, Tim Kennedy, talking about the pullout, and then we're going to play a more extensive clip of Green Beret speaking about what he saw.
So many lives are lost. You know, today is the anniversary of 13 Americans. You know, hundreds of Afghans were killed at that gate. You know, that was a terrorist attack during the evacuation. One of the most poorly planned strategic evacuations in American history. And if we're not learning from this, if we're not treating this as an opportunity to improve, not just strategically, but who we are as a people, making sure that all of our allies look to us and know that we're going to stand by them all the way to the end, that we are good allies, that we are good friends. We're not just going to turn our back when we're done, when it's no longer of public interest, that we're going to work all the way through to the final finish line. There are so many important lessons to be learned here.
Man, so when people say it's the worst in history, I heard Tim Kennedy say this, and I was like, man, people are just exaggerating. Your guy, Biden's not your guy, and you're just taking this time. You're just taking this opportunity to just jab him really hard. That's really what I thought. And then I started looking into it more and more, and I was like, wow, this is actually terrible. So you're about to hear exactly what he saw when he was on the ground handling this pullout. And here we go.
Kaya, the airport in Kabul, as an embassy. So the military just secured the perimeter of the embassy, the airport, and anybody that got on the airport was able to get out. Except the military wasn't allowed to go outside of the airport, so all the people in the city of Kabul were stuck. And that's where we had to come in. So we had to go out into Kabul and grab the people and then smuggle them past the Taliban to get them onto planes. And to answer your question, that perimeter of the base where the gates, there's tens of thousands of people that were lining up here, and they maybe walked a few days. So by the time they get there, they're dehydrated. They have nothing there. There's no food. There's no water. The Taliban, if there's too many people, they'll just take a magazine and just dump it into the crowd to move them back, or to crowd control them. They'll just dump a magazine into a crowd of people. The women, they would float babies like you're at a baseball game with a beach ball. They would float the baby towards the gate, and then hope in the hopes that a Marine or a soldier would reach down and grab the baby and bring it into safety. And when that didn't work, the moms would take the babies and they'd try to throw them over the walls. Well, guess what's on either side of the wall? Concertina wire. There's fucking concertina wire on both sides of this wall. Christ. So these babies would land in the wire, and we're in the middle of moving, hundreds of people at a time, smuggling them past the Taliban, and I'm stepping over a baby in water, or there's a small body that's on fire that was burnt alive by the Taliban. One of the teams, as they went out into Kabul, and they just missed it by seconds. They're going to go pick up this woman that was a journalist for the Afghan, one of the Afghan news organizations, but the Taliban got to her first. They pull up, the Taliban see these guys in the car, they drop her on the hood of the car, and they execute her on the car as they just look at the dudes in the car. There's nothing that they can do. Just execute her. This was every day. So when I said a level of desperation I've never seen before, this is like no American can imagine that type of desperation. And that was everywhere you looked.
And how long were you there for while this was happening?
Our ground team, there's myself and 3 other personnel recovery experts. We were there total for 10 days.
And did it dissipate somewhat? No,
it just got more desperate. So everybody that was watching on television, they saw curated, controlled information. Is way worse on the ground. So what looked like a semblance of an assembly line of planes taking off and planes coming in, that is inside a controlled environment. That was on the base. Outside, if you go 1,000 meters outside of the wire, it is just chaos, anarchy, apocalyptic level madness. Really, really, really total Taliban experience out there.
Man. And so when you're leaving 10 days later, how are you feeling?
One of the guys with us, his codename Sea Spray, he didn't eat in those 10 days. He lost 20 something pounds in the 10 days that he was there. And, he could nibble on a cracker and drink water just because he didn't have any enzymes left in his stomach to break anything down. When you're running out the wire to grab a family and come back in, you don't really have time to think about what you're stepping over, but you still see it. And that's the thing that tortures my mind is I still saw it all, but I didn't have the time to address it emotionally, think about this dead body I'm stepping over, because I'm really busy trying to get to this family. And then when I get to this family and I confirm.
Oh, man. Tim Kennedy, man. Jeez. It is wild to hear this type of stuff, man. But that's like now I have a better correlation to when people say that the pullout was so terrible and why they are so upset with Biden about this pullout. Because then when you hear that story, you're like, oh, he put thousands of people through that. Not just Americans, but also people in Afghanistan who were hoping to leave with the Americans that were leaving. Wild. Absolutely wild. Sad. Really, really sad. Really, really sad to think about. Babies and the desperation and wild. You know, it makes me think of Joe Rogan. He was just talking about in another episode that I'm breaking down right now. He was talking about how it's the end of the world somewhere. He goes, not here, not where you are. Where you are, it's fine. But somewhere, people are like, this is like the end of the world. They're like in apocalyptic type of stuff. And that's one of those scenes for sure. Let's move on to the border real quick. Tim Kennedy talking about the border from a different perspective that we don't get to hear all the time. A lot of people who are covering the border, they're civilians. They're going there in the daytime. They're interviewing some migrants sometimes. Sometimes they'll get in front of some border patrol people. But all in all, they never get to really stand in front of the danger. They get to see it, you know, the wildness of it, the openness of it. But they don't get to the danger part. And Tim Kennedy's really into the danger part. So let's listen to this.
And AI was saying that it's 84% that guy.
Wow.
So like really, really probable that this convicted terrorist that spent time for terrorism was illegally crossing the border into America and bragging to the news about what he's going to do in America and how everybody's going to know his name. And we're in a really scary time right now. It's a humanitarian crisis down there. I spent 6 months on the border, and Texas is doing what Texas is supposed to be doing and what America should be doing, which is having a sovereign border, having a closed border, and then making people go through the appropriate legal process of entering this country. I'm white. My family is an immigrant into the United States, but my family immigrated here through the laws and the requirements of the time. I get it. We have a broken system, but when you're in the hundreds of thousands of people coming across as asylum seekers, and they're all military-age men from countries that are our enemies, we have a problem. This is not an immigration problem. This is an invasion by enemies.
And you've dealt with like actual like refugees and talking with our friend Tim Kennedy and people who actually are seeking asylum. Usually there's some women and children involved in that mix.
Mostly.
It's not just the lads.
No, it's mostly women and children. You know, if you look at the evacuation of Afghanistan, true asylum seekers, right? A Taliban's coming across the border. They're going to be killing everybody. If I have one guy, one man, one military-age man, I have 2 or 3 women, usually his wife and a sister of some form, and then I have like 6 kids. That is a typical asylum-seeking family. You look at Ukraine. You go to the train station in Kyiv. As the people are leaving, you see no men, because none of the men are leaving. Only women and children. You know, you go to Israel, the exact same thing. Only women and children. And I mean, even Americans that were in Israel in October, the men were choosing to stay. Like these were, you know, generational Jews and Israelis. And, you know, they maybe had already served their 2 or 4 years. Like they're sending their families back that are also American citizens, and they are trying to volunteer as reserves. They're trying to volunteer as police officers. And that, again, would be a perfect example of, even in a time of conflict and crisis, what a refugee family looks like. What we see at the border is the inverse of that. It is only men, and it is only military-age men, and they are not coming from these, like, impoverished Central and South American countries. These are not Mexicans. These are Middle Easterners. These are Chinese.
A lot of Chinese, yeah.
It's madness. It's an invasion.
It's without firing a single shot.
That's right.
You're just like steamrolling into a country. Talking with Tim Kennedy, that's the scary thing about this too. And then, you know, you have Border Patrol. So you have the governors accused of cruel and inhumane policies. The way that they speak about Border Patrol agents who are predominantly Hispanic at the border, which apparently I guess the administration doesn't realize. I will never forget, though, the image or the video of the feds going in, and they were cutting the razor wire and lifting it up, and you literally could see the coyotes working for the cartel across the river on the bank, watching the feds help them.
Yeah.
That's, I mean, who's getting the cut from the cartels? There's a lot of money to be made. Somebody's getting a cut in D.C.
Yeah, it's tried. You know, I have videos on my phone, shot on my phone of these human traffickers that are working directly for their cartel. And anybody that is happy.
Wild. But I love that he just broke down that whole thing, because he's been to all these places. So you go to Ukraine, you see it's only women that are leaving. You go, he actually has seen refugee families. It's usually a man, woman, kids, and then you see the complete opposite at the border. And the thing is, nobody questions that. And I don't know why someone like him, who was at the border for 6 months, can't say, hey, with my military training, all these people, I'm putting a stop to this right now because something doesn't seem right. I don't know why he's not allowed to do that. I guess not his jurisdiction, I guess. But at the same time, they're asking him to go to the border. It's not like he went there for a YouTube video or anything like that. So it's interesting that he can't just step in and say, hey, this is not allowed. Or if he even thought to do that, I don't know. But I mean, he seems passionate enough. He should be able to just kind of step in and be like, hey, I got to tell you guys, this doesn't look right. Something's going on here. Because for that, I did another video where there was a sheriff, Arizona sheriff, who was patrolling the border, and he understood exactly what was going on. He understood that these people weren't walking, they were flying in. He understood that they were taking their passports, tearing it up, throwing money, lying about who they actually are. He understood all of that. So I don't see why someone like him, someone like Tim Kennedy, all these guys who are on the ground, who are there, can't come together with all this knowledge set and be like, we actually have to stop all this. I don't get it. But we're going to hear a little bit more from Tim Kennedy talking about this exact same issue and his perspective from how the cartels are getting a hand up in this whole thing. Let's go.
But when people say, let's not worry about what's happening outside of America, we have our own borders to worry about.
Yeah.
I think that there is a point that we need to worry about our own borders. And you have served at our borders as well.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our geographically close problems, because they're significant.
Yeah. They're so much more significant than I think most Americans understand. If you will go to one of the border states, like Texas, where I live, it is one of the largest issues for everyone that lives there. Like, if you have land on the southern border, you are experiencing an indescribable humanitarian crisis on your own property. You're fighting. There's this beautiful book called The New Rules of War. And we are currently at war with China, Russia, Iran, and the cartels. The way that Americans want to fight war is the way that we fought war in World War II. Like state on state, right? These big, large maneuver elements, uniformed bad guys, uniformed good guys. They're meeting in an agreed area and they're competing over this contested area. That's the war that we're really good at. That's where like America's might can be brought to bear. That's not the war that we're fighting right now. The war that we're fighting on the southern border right now is against non-state actors that are being supported by states. The fentanyl that's being snuck across the border by these Mexican cartel members, that is being supplied by China. Why would China want fentanyl in America? Because it is crazy addictive and it's killing us, and it's a very fantastic way to destroy your enemy, to poison your enemy from within. So on the border, I'll just give you an example of a night. We have Border Patrol, we have Texas Department of Public Safety, and we have Texas National Guard. Texas Department of Public Safety and National Guard are controlled by the state and by the governor. They have competing missions than what Border Patrol does. Border Patrol is treating everybody that crosses that border as if they came in via a port of entry, as if you were just crossing legally, like through Tijuana, which is crazy, right? Like, hey, welcome. You need to come to this this jurisdiction to see this judge on this day in 5 years from now, to understand what your immigration process is going to look like. They just allow them in and they can go into the interior. That's Border Patrol. At the same time, you have Texas DPS and Texas National Guard that is treating that border like a proper sovereign border, i.e. you cannot cross here. You have to go to a port of entry and you have to cross legally. Like, they're not doing anything besides enforcing the law that is not just state, but also federal law. On these nights, across the river from us, there'll be 300 or 400 immigrants. They're all getting positioned by human traffickers. Every single one of those people, whether they came from Central America, like Guatemala, or they came from South America, from like Colombia or Brazil or Venezuela, or they're foreign nationals that are coming from China or from the Middle East, or they're violent extremist insurgents that are trying to sneak across the border. They're all mixed in there. They're all in this group of 300-400 people, right? They're getting positioned by the traffickers. The traffickers are going to move them all across the river at the same time in a shallow point, or a mostly shallow point. So what we have is this huge logistical operational problem, a resource drain, where we have to have enough people to process these people, to try to stop these people, to prevent them from drowning in the river. And while that's happening, 1 mile up the river, there's 5 guys with backpacks full of fentanyl. And the moment that these people go into the water to cross illegally, they hop in the water to cross and smuggle these drugs across. Now, right when we're about to try and interdict these people, one of these traffickers, the human traffickers, will walk up to this beautiful mom with a baby on her shoulders and a toddler in her arms. They'll grab the baby, throw it in the water, grab the toddler, throw it in the water. And what do you think we're going to do?
Save the baby.
That's right. Yeah. Do you think body armor floats? Nah. We're going in the water. Those soldiers are jumping in the drink to save these kids. That's exactly what the human traffickers want. All the while, we're having to send even more resources to now 400 people with babies in the water. The mom, of course, is going to go try to, now the mom's drowning. The dad, who was being cool, has now lost his mind, and he doesn't know he's fighting one of the guys because he's trying to find the baby, but the guy's trying to find, like, the chaos times 400. And the traffickers are just laughing. And then a mile up the river, 5 guys just got onto American soil with 5 backpacks full of fentanyl, which is enough to kill the entire city of Chicago. That's every night.
Well, like you said, that's every night. And that makes perfect sense. That makes perfect sense. And that's why, you know, a lot of people still have the talking point of, you know, wanting border security is somehow this right wing. You know, maybe they want to throw a little spice on it, call it racist. Maybe they got a big vocabulary. They go xenophobic. They put all these words on it. But when you hear that depiction of how it all works and what actually ends up happening, I don't know. It just seems like you're saving so many people by making it more secure. And again, I've said this before. People on the American side and people on the Mexican side, you're saving lives on both sides. I don't know. That's just me. Let's move on to something a little brighter. I just wanted you guys to see that because, you know, this is somebody who's actually on the ground. You know, we don't hear this, and there's going to be no real YouTube videos that come out depicting that because it's just too dangerous. It's too dangerous. It's too dark. The people who are involved in this stuff, Tim Kennedy doesn't want you standing beside him with a camera being like, okay, now he doesn't have time. They don't have time for all that. Because there's situations like that going on, and there's serious situations, and people can get hurt, and often do. So, moving on, Donald Trump wins. Did I just break my pen? Donald Trump wins South Carolina, where Nikki Haley is from. Do I even have to put her face in this? I'll put her face in this, of course. Let's play this real quick.
Locking up the Republican nomination with a double-digit win over Nikki Haley in the South Carolina primary. Trump defeated the former South Carolina governor 60% to 39%. Alexandria Hoff has reaction to the results.
President Trump continuing his winning streak Saturday, taking...
Winning streak. He has been on a streak. I think, what is he, 5 for 5? I don't know if Michigan makes him 6 for 6. I'm not 100% sure, but he's just been winning like crazy. Now, he won that. He gave a speech. Let me see if let me make sure I have the what he actually said first. Where is that? Here, there it is. There it is. Let's play what he said first, and then we'll go to CNN absolutely crying about it relentlessly. So this is what Donald Trump said that CNN is just all up in arms about, of course, here.
Good. These lights are so bright in my eyes that I can't see too many people out there. But I can only see the black ones. I can't see any white ones, you see? That's how far I've come. That's how far I've come. That's a long way, isn't it? These lights. We've come a long way together. Good.
Now, just keep in mind, there's not like a group of racist white people in the background going, "Ooh!" Those are all black people that are screaming and cheering. So they were pretty okay with it. But CNN, of course, was not. And you know what's funny about this clip? It's so funny to see a Vanderbilt, Anderson Cooper, literally from the Vanderbilt family, being like, I don't like this one bit. Like, you're a Vanderbilt, bro. You're like right up there with, I'm not even going to get into it. That's for a completely different episode. This guy's a Vanderbilt, upset that Trump just made a joke that all these black people are okay with. So tired of white people being upset for black people. It's such an odd thing, It's such an odd thing. Black people got thick skin. Don't worry about it. But let's get into it. Let's hear what CNN had to say about what Trump just said.
Something that the former president said last night to black conservatives. Let's play that.
I got indicted a second time and a third time and a fourth time. And a lot of people said that that's why the black people like me, because they have been hurt so badly and discriminated against. And they actually viewed me as I'm being discriminated against. The mugshot, we've all seen the mugshot. And you know who embraced it more than anybody else? The black population. It's incredible. You see black people walking around with my mugshot.
And Jake asked James Clyburn about that. Also, President Biden had said something recently. He said, Donald Trump has been showing black Americans his true colors for years, an incompetent anti-black tyrant who holds us to such low regard that he publicly dined with white nationalists a week after declaring his 2024 candidacy. Come November, no matter how many disingenuous voter engagement events he attends, black Americans will show Donald Trump we know exactly who he is. What do you think of the support that he's been getting?
I don't think it's real. And I don't know if anybody else would disagree with me at this table. I do think that there are two different things that could be true at the same time. One is that the Democratic Party has for a very long period of time taken black voters for granted. And there is a question right now about the energy that is behind Joe Biden from black voters and supporting him in November. That is true. What's also true and can be said is that Donald Trump is a racist who utilizes racism as a political currency. I can remember going back in studio in 2016 when Jake Tapper was interviewing him about David Duke, and he acted like he didn't know who David Duke was on the eve of the Mississippi primary. The fact that he keeps, and even Lindsey Graham said it tonight, that black Americans have a propensity to commit crimes, et cetera, to hypersexualize us, to hypercriminalize us, to keep falling into these tropes. That is the type of racism that plays to the base of his party. He says these things to black voters to their faces, the ones who are ignorant enough to be in that room, not talking to them. That's what people miss. Donald Trump is not talking to black voters when he goes down these tropes. He's actually talking to white voters and to his base to churn them up and build in a lot of the resentment that we see.
This is amazing. This is amazing. This is why I watch some mainstream stuff, because you really have to take in what this guy just did. He just said that the black support for Trump is not real. Then goes on to say, and by the way, when he said that thing about the Democratic, did you see this lady's face when he said that about the Democratic Party taking advantage of black people? She's like, "Excuse me, sir. Are we on CNN or not? Are you here to bring common sense, or are you trying to bring propaganda? I suggest you choose wisely, son." The black people who support Trump are not real. If they are in that room, they're ignorant. His racism is based in the fact that he said he didn't know who David Duke was. Unless the interviewer got called the N-word directly after, who's David Duke, N-word? Unless he did that, I don't think that's actually racist. He just said he didn't know somebody, and then goes on to attach Lindsey Graham to Donald Trump and uses Lindsey Graham of Donald Trump's example of racism. Then goes on to say the good things he says in front of black people are not to the black people who he's talking to, but actually to the white people who are not in the room. That's mainstream media for you. That is mainstream media for you. The mental gymnastics that I just went down as I just said all that is crazy. Absolutely crazy. When he says he loves black, all that stuff that he said to black people, he was actually saying to white people. Hey, man, he was in a room with only black people. What are you talking about? So crazy. So crazy. And honestly, when it comes to the whole sneaker thing, or not even the sneaker thing, the mugshot thing, that's absolutely true. There's a whole, you can find it online. There was rows of people in Atlanta cheering for him, screaming his name. And then when they saw the mugshot, they actually did identify with it. That's like, I don't even understand why that's such a horrible thing. I'm actually going to play this BLM leader who just switched over to voting for Trump. Hear what he has to say. It's actually pretty wild. But I don't know why that's such a wild thing. The reason that hip hop works so well in the black community, not just because it's a black art, but it's because they're identifying with people who have gone through the same things as them. And that goes for a white rapper as well. That's what people do. They see you go through the same thing as them and they identify with you. What? That's what Trump is to the people of America, not even just black people or white people. They identify with him. The things he has to say, the things he's gone through. Let's play this. BLM leader apparently switches over to to being a Trump supporter, and the BLM leadership is up in arms about it. Let's go.
Of watching young black men and women shot.
Turn back the clock to 2020. Mark Fisher, a Black Lives Matter Rhode Island leader in the streets of Providence, taking part in a rally leading to the steps of the State House, fighting for change and a voice. But tonight, Fisher making national headlines, using his voice to endorse Donald Trump for president.
Trump has done more for the black community than any president I can think of in my lifetime.
It's a bad look for Rhode Islanders, period, not just BLM.
Rhode Island Black Lives Matter founder brother Gary Dantzler, disgusted by Mark Fisher's comments.
He's disgusted. Oh, of course he is. Of course he is. He's like, if this brother was going to come and just think for himself, man, like, that's not what we're about. You know what I mean? We're trained Marxists here, and we all have to just fall in line. I mean, that's what we're supposed to do. I can't believe this brother went and thought for himself and looked into information that we didn't provide him. That's my black impression. My white impression is this comes naturally. My black impression, I'm still working on it. Let's go to the next clip. This gentleman, he's a pretty wild message. And I'm playing these clips because the guy in CNN said this black support is just not real. He just said it's not real. It's myth. It's legend. The mythical black people who support Trump that aren't real. They live in Narnia. They only come out at midnight. Through the wardrobe is where you find them. Let's go.
You want to know why I'm here to support President Trump? Because they done did black men like this for decades. Make up charges and put them, so I know Trump is innocent. I support Trump against this corrupt, two-tiered justice system. That's why I'm here to show my support as a black man for Trump. And I'm wearing my shirt for Trump 2024, and I mean that.
What do you think about the indictments?
Oh, it's a bunch of bullshit. It's going around the country. You know, Fannie Willis, she went to school with my sister. She's full of shit. So she's a puppet for the white liberal that is controlling everything. She's in front, but the white liberal back there pulling those strings, telling her what to do. That's what I think about her, making a fool of herself.
Do you think it's going to help his election?
Of course it is. It's going to elevate him all the way. I think we should make Trump king. That's how I feel.
Should make him king. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I wonder if his sister really went to school with Fannie Willis. That's very interesting if that's true. But again, you know, it's just and you know the funny thing is, he brought up the indictments. He understood. He connected with Trump through the indictments. He's like, I see what's happening. Because he knows that happens. That happens. Black people, people of color, people who are in the streets, they know that happens. Sometimes they just roll up on you and they try to put a fake charge on you because they're just trying to mess with you. I know that happens. I've never even had a run-in with the law. Now we're going to go over to another gentleman talking about, we're just rolling them out, you know, these mythical creatures, these black people who support Trump. Here's another one.
And I was sentenced to a double life sentence for my first arrest for a nonviolent drug offense in 2004. I lost all my appeals, and I was denied clemency by the Obama administration. It took 16 plus years before President Trump granted my clemency and allowed me to go home in 2020. I was a part of a broken and unjust system. And now it hurts me to the core to see the same system going after a former president. This is what blacks been going through since day one. If we allow this to happen to the former president, we can only imagine what's going to happen to the rest of the country. Please stand up now if you have a voice, and let's fight against this. God bless you all. Thank you.
I guess Trump was right. People are identifying with him based on this whole thing that's been going on. Now, this last gentleman that I have to play, this guy really struck a chord, because you could tell this brother really woke up, and he's just kind of, it's like he's still bewildered. He really woke up. Listen to this. This is great.
I'm just saying, man, it woke me up. All these lies woke me up. I would not be a pawn in their evil scheme. I don't believe in the things that they believe. I'm tired. I'm sick of being lied to. I was sick then, 2014, and I'm sick now. Donald Trump is the greatest president of my lifetime. Because I've seen him make promises and keep most of them. And I've seen him actually be honest when speaking to the black community. He didn't sell them wolf tickets. He stood on that stage and said, black people. When he say black people, he said, what do you got to lose? And that's an honest statement. I hope I said that correctly, but what do we have to lose? We've been lied to and ain't got shit done for us for all this time. What do we have to lose? Because Democrat-run cities are the worst. Democratic-run neighborhoods are the worst. What do we have to lose? It was a long journey. I'm glad I'm here. I'm glad I'm where I'm at. I'm full on MAGA. I'm full on conservative. But I'm going to end off by saying this. This is only the beginning. And there's more like me. Believe me. I could have said a whole lot more, but I want this to be short and sweet because I wanted you to feel me. 2024 is very important. Let's make the right decision.
Now, he did say short and sweet, but this video is 11 minutes. If you follow me on X, I'm going to repost this right now. You'll be able to find it on my X page right away. That's I am Coach Colin. Don't forget to subscribe as well to the channel. But he goes into this whole thing where he's talking about Obama and the lies that he was told, and the way the Democrats constantly lie, and he said something really inspiring. He talked about how Obama was not the great uniter that he was said to be, but actually the great divider. And I found that very, very impactful. I was like, wow, this guy really, really gets it. So there's a lot of black people like that, man. Like he said, there's many, 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 many more. And I can't wait for him to be in Madison Square Garden. I'm going to be there. 100%. You can find me there. I'm going to be there 100% if he's in there. I cannot wait for that. But yeah, I just wanted to show you guys all that. I know we've been down a long road. It's been a long time. If you're still watching after an hour, man, thank you so much. You have no idea. And let's close it out with such a memorable moment. Let's go. Let's close it out with this.
Listen, you got to come see us when you come to New York, VP Biden.
I will.
It's a long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
It don't have no.
You damn right. That's becoming true in a different way. when you really think about it. Anyways, guys, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And other than that, I'm out.